The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I want to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we're going to have a discussion on whether comparing the Trump, and I do call it a regime rather than an administration, and that is done because of my very strong feeling that this is a regime, not a standard, or shall we say normal, presidential administration. And we were discussing the use of language last time, whether it is appropriate to compare the present regime to Hitler, and whether or not the answer would be yes or no, or somewhere in between, or yes some of the time, or no some of the time, or what exactly. So I bring you Mark and Scott and their thoughts. So who would like to start?
This is definitely going to be Scott starting.
You think? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. This came up in my mind when Bill Maher, the host of HBO's, whatever that thing is called, went to Mar-a-Lago with Kid Rock to hang out with Trump. And he came away saying Trump was totally charming and what a lovely man. And they had such a nice time together. And maybe he's not the monster that we think he is. And I was watching it when he made this announcement on a Friday night a couple of weeks ago. And all I could think to myself was, Hitler loved dogs. Hitler was quite a good dancer, that kind of thing. And you cannot compare Trump to Hitler as we know Hitler today. Like the 1945 Hitler, there's no comparison. But there's a couple of pretty interesting parallels between Trump and Hitler 1934 and 1935, actually. Not so sure about 1936 and 1937. I think Hitler went pretty far off the rails, and that was probably where the comparison should end. But there are a lot of really alarming parallels, and I don't think that they're an accident, by the way. I think Trump has long been known to keep a volume of Hitler's quotations by his bedside and draws inspiration from Hitler's tips on leadership and has his own little Goebbels there in what's that dude's name, Mark?
Which one? Which one?
the one of the nastier ones. No,
Bannon?
Stephen Miller.
So Stephen, well, yeah, him and Bannon.
Yeah, but Stephen Miller is like, off the charts, next level, seems evil to me, and not really based in reality at all. So on and so forth. So when somebody says, as Bill Maher did, that you insult the Jews who died in the Holocaust when you say that Sikot down in El Salvador is a concentration camp, or that people were sent to concentration camps, once again, I'm going to have to step in here and say, sir, you're thinking of death camps. You're thinking of Auschwitz and Treblinka. You're not thinking of the concentration camps that were established in the 1930s by the Nazis to put their political enemies. You're not thinking of those concentration camps, which we probably call penitentiaries now. I mean, again, language being what it is. How about this one? Trump and Hitler both loved tariffs, and both for the same reason. Because we want our products being made by pure Americans. We want our crops picked by pure Americans, not foreigners who soil the blood of America, as Trump has claimed. And so Hitler established tariffs. He was warned not to. They collapsed the economy of Germany worse than it had been. And Trump is doing the same thing today. It's Wednesday. The stock market is way down. GDP fell. So we've got now 1/4 of negativity, and another quarter of that would mean that we're in a recession. Welcome to Trump's America. Trump himself put out one of his tweets to claim that this is Biden's economy. But back when it was Biden's economy in January 29th, 2025, he claimed that it was Trump's economy then. So now it's back to Biden's economy. It's a little seesaw for economists probably. And so I do think it's appropriate. And I do think that and here's my last point, Mark, before I turn it over to you. It's the whole reason we have history is to not repeat the mistakes of the past. And by denying the fact that there are these parallels, we are forgetting the lessons of the past. And that's why we have history, and that's where I'll leave it.
I think sometimes we make comparisons of things that are in recent history. And this will probably get me a whole bunch of emails, guaranteed. Hitler was nothing new. You could go back through history and look at many civilizations, many different empires, many different, world leaders, Genghis Khan, Caesars, some of the Caesars. Hitler wasn't anything new. That we had people just as bad, if not more horrible than he was. Was he horrible? He was absolutely horrible in the 20th century. He's recent history. So that's why we make those comparisons so quickly to somebody so close to us in history. But I mean, hell, you could compare Donald Trump and Hitler to some of the Roman Empire, the emperors, Caligula. We could make all sorts of comparisons like that. So to say that either one of these two people, Hitler or Donald Trump, is something new, no, they're not. Trump is new to the United States, no doubt about it. Hitler was new to Europe and was new to the German people. Yes, absolutely. But again, in other countries, there have been examples of these two types of people. These two types of leaders have existed in the past. The comparison that I always say, and again, anybody that has had the unfortunate requirement back in high school to read Mein Kampf, which, believe it or not, in my high school, we had to. It was one of those books that we read and studied. Will find that in that book, it's an amazing thing. It is exactly, if you take the book, take out all the crazy, rhetoric that Hitler put into it, you will see the blueprint to how to be a politician. It's there. And guess what, people? It's exactly what is used in the United States today. Now, did they read the book and take it from it? No, probably not. But that blueprint exists. And if we really look at the way politics in the United States is run, it's run by that blueprint. But even that blueprint wasn't anything new. It was just written down. It's something that Dr. Goebbels took and then put out the propaganda. So Fox News is nothing new. So there is a comparison. But you know what? Goebbels wasn't anything new either. In the ancient world, they used propaganda a lot. The Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, all of these, the Carthaginians, they all used propaganda. So we just tailored all these things that are basically part of human society, and we basically modernized it. But we can't say that it's anything new. So when we talk about comparing Trump to Hitler, yes, there are comparisons only because they're both working from the same blueprint. There's where the comparisons are. Let's remember on Hitler, and I took a lot of bad emails on this. Adolf Hitler took over Germany at a time when the German state was broke. There was no infrastructure. There was no industry. They didn't have anything. They were defeated. They were humiliated after World War I. And in 8 years, was able to bring them within a couple of steps of world domination. We can't come up with a budget in 8 years. Now, did he do it because he was a good guy? No. Does he deserve, kudos for that? No, because of the methods that he used. But the fact is that's how society works. That's how it works. And that's why Germany was really a true superpower of the time. And if not for the United States, we all might be speaking German today. I mean, it's a possibility. So we have to remember, and Scott is so right when he says, we need to learn from history. That's the problem. Sometimes we learn the wrong lessons, such as what Mein Kampf says. Yes, it's a great blueprint to being a successful politician, how to manipulate the masses. Absolutely. But that's been going on for centuries, for millennia. So, I think sometimes we try to give ourselves some comfort in the fact when we look at, well, Donald Trump's like Hitler. Yes. They're both like Caligula, too. They're both like Julius Caesar or, some of the other really bad people, Genghis Khan. I mean, you could name a bunch. Okay. Ivan the Terrible. And there's plenty of examples. It's just we've modernized it. So 1930s was almost 100 years ago. We've just gotten better at it, and that's the unfortunate thing. So I know the poll said, I think 68% of the respondents says yes, it's fair to make those comparisons. I believe it's fair too, but I don't think it's fair to make it on the personal. First of all, Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump were two totally different types of people, working off the same playbook, but two totally different types of people. Donald Trump is a moron. Hitler was a madman. Two totally different things. Donald Trump is a 5-year-old in a man's body. Adolf Hitler was a madman. Two totally different things. And I think so when we look at the comparisons, yes, look at the blueprint that they both used, but also remember that in Mein Kampf, that wasn't anything new. That existed long before that book was ever written. I guess that's all I can really say about that.
Good segment.
Yeah, very good segment.
All I want to add is that Aristotle, way back when, said that the way to be successful as a public speaker is to figure out what your audience wants to hear and then tell them exactly that. And certainly both Hitler and Trump have figured out exactly what their audiences wanted to hear. And here is where, and Goebbels as well, and Trump has used, as you say, what Hitler advised. Make the wording very, very simple so that the least intelligent member who is listening in the audience can understand what is being said and repeat it many, 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 many times. And if you repeat it enough, people will believe it. Then it becomes true. I never finished Mein Kampf. I found it very, very tedious. I should force myself to plow my way through it and actually finish the book and see if I can tease out the political aspect that Mark was talking about. But I do see parallels between what Trump is doing and what Hitler did successfully in getting the public excited and ready to go to overt violence.
His need for people to worship him is sickening. Unfortunately, it's like the least of it. It's not something that we should really be concentrating on because his policies are so destructive to everything that we believe in, and the economy that we had finally built back up again after his last time in office, and what he's doing to Ukraine and his fealty to Russia and all these. There's so many different things that Trump is doing that are incredibly destructive. That we don't have time really to focus on his personality or his psychology or anything like that.
Except that has outcomes and consequences for his behavior and treatment of other nations. But
apparently his staff was meeting with South Koreans or Japanese, and he thought that they were Chinese because he doesn't know the difference. And he said that they're meeting with the Chinese right now. And by the way, the Japanese went home with nothing because they wouldn't say what they want, and the Trump people wouldn't say what he wanted. So they basically just sat across the table from each other, staring at one another, nobody talking until it was time to go home. And they went back to Japan with nothing. So, if you're not willing to, and that's a negotiating tactic, as his insulting the reporter yesterday from ABC News, saying that he had never heard of him, and so on. Again, I don't want to get into his psychosis. I'm really more concerned with what he's doing than why he's doing it, and we should resist as best we can.
Yeah, well, there are definitely going to be ongoing consequences because of Trump's mental unwellness.
His voters love that. They love that.
Well, the rest of us don't. So, Mark, anything else to add?
No, I ended it about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, the moment I started speaking.
About 10 minutes ago, what
were we talking about again?
Yeah, what were we talking about again? Everything that I had loaded was over with 10 minutes ago.
All right.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next thing then.
Next thing.
All right. So I want to thank everyone for listening to us and spending some of your time with us on the Nova Society. Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of NovaWorks, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.